Hello guys! Welcome to another video of mine. I have set up my fake fireplace over here to make the mood cozy. So in this video I'm gonna answer some photography questions, give you some photography, modeling, posing tips. I am no expert, just quick disclaimer over there. I just did all these things by trial and error, and I've learned, and I want to give you everything I know so far. So I asked you on Instagram to ask me some questions and you came up with a lot, so let's get into it. What camera do you recommend for a beginner? So my camera, one that I'm filming right now, it's a Canon DSLR camera. It's around 500 euros. It's not completely amateur, but it's not professional. It's somewhere in the middle. It's pretty decent. It has a lot of capabilities and I'm very pleased with it. The one I had before that was a very old Canon. It was sort of vintage. It was one my father got back in the 2000s, and it wasn't able to shoot any videos. It was that old, but it did the job just fine, and I think it was somewhere around 200 euros, which is with a lens as well, which is pretty cheap. So I don't think you need to invest a lot of money if you want to start on photography. You can find pretty decent Canon ones. I personally use Canon, but whether you want to buy a Canon, a Nikon or another brand, the ones that are around 200, 300 are pretty decent. I mean, in the end of the day, the camera does not make the photographer, although this sounds very cliche, it's the truth. So yeah, obviously I cannot recommend any model, any specific model, because I don't know them by heart. But I'm just telling at the price range that you're looking for. You find very similar cameras like mine, very similar specs, a bit cheaper, a bit more expensive. Like, it depends on the very little details, which when you're starting they don't matter, so you can find a pretty cheap one and it can do the job. So another one of you says, "Hi, how do you manage to take photos of yourself while posing?" So the trick for that, if you don't want to press the timer and start running, that doesn't give you a lot of time, is to download the app on your phone. You can find the app of the camera on the App Store. I use the one by Canon, so I can only speak for that. It's free, by the way. You will download it eventually, because if your camera has a Wi-Fi, you will be able to connect it to your phone and just download pictures on your phone straight from the camera. If you're outside and you want to post on Instagram, you don't have access to a computer. The second and most valuable feature this app has is to take pictures with your phone. So you just put your camera there with a tripod and you connect it to the app, and basically you can see on your phone screen what is happening. You can change the ISO, you can change the shutter speed, everything. And basically if you touch your screen, it focuses on different areas, so it's great. You won't have to worry about lighting, you don't have to worry about focus, autofocus, and you can even put a timer on your phone. So you will look at your phone, take the pose you like, press the screen whether you want it to focus your face, something you're holding, and then you press the button and the timing starts from there. So you have all this extra time to pose, prepare yourself, and yeah, it's working, because in this case all you need is time, okay? If you just press the timer, this is what I did in the past. I just pressed the timer and ran and posed. And this is really not helpful if you're by yourself. Where do your ideas come from? The photos that you take are so beautiful and different. I take a lot of inspiration from classical paintings, Renaissance paintings, pre-Raphaelite paintings, I really like the aesthetic, the soft tones. I really like the poses, how feminine and angelic they are. Also, I really like to take inspirations from old horror movies, like silent movies. As for dressing and props, I really like Victorian costumes. I really like pagan props like antlers, skulls, weird face paint. And also sometimes I get inspired by real life tales, legends, mythology, things like that. I like to read a lot. The easiest inspiration for you is Pinterest. You can find a lot of artists and you will be inspired by their work. And maybe you can implement these elements you like in your own photography. You can find props that really work with you and look really good in the pictures. Of course, Instagram, I follow so many amazing artists on Instagram, and this is like the best thing to do because you're able to communicate with them and exchange ideas. Also traveling, that's another thing. Whenever you travel, all the creative juices are flowing in your brain. So yeah, that's pretty much it. That's my inspiration. How does one pose for pictures and how does one look more photogenic? Ouch, this hit home because I'm not photogenic, okay? You may say, oh, you look good on your photos. This is because I have found by posing in front of the mirror for hours my two good sides. But yeah, I have a big nose, I'm Greek, I have these big nose here, so this is really not very helpful to take, especially close-ups. If you want to do a more far-away portrait, it's easier because you just move your body. So let's just not talk about the face because every person has different features. If you don't have the nose that I have, maybe you will take better close-ups. If we're talking about like the body posture, there are a lot of tips. I can like talk about it for an hour, but basically what I personally really focus on, and I have a weird obsession about, are hands. I really like hands to be beautiful on the shots. I don't like hands that look like claws or something. I'm really obsessed with hands. This is why I take inspiration from Renaissance paintings, because the hands are so delicate, so beautiful, and the tip for that is just don't put a lot of pressure, just have them physically, like they're dead, like this, and they will come off better in the photos, other than having them like this. Unless you want to do something, you know. Something else is mainly for the girls, to like stretch the torso, twist the waist to look more, because I don't have a very tiny waist. Yeah, and I do all these tricks to look more like these beautiful women on the paintings. Of course, the props will help you, they will complement your photography. What you wear helps a lot on your pose. But yeah, see yourself in the mirror, change poses, find all the angles that you like and see which ones work for you, and just start from there. Recommendations on a camera for self-portraits. Now, this is where most of you get it wrong. The camera is just the vessel. What does the trick is the lens. There are so many different lenses for different things. There are lenses for self-portrait, there are lenses for urban street photography and landscape, there are lenses for super zooming on flowers, plants, insects, animals, on the moon, the telephoto ones. There are wide angle lenses that are super zoomed out, and these are better for filmography because you saw a lot of space. I'm planning to buy one just to shoot better videos. Yeah, right now I'm shooting with the pretty basic 50mm one, which is, I got it recently, it's my newest lens. It's like 100 euros, 125 euros, something like that. And this is the one I use for self-portraits. I love it so much, mainly for the focus. It can even focus on one single hair and everything else behind will be blurry, and this I love this. So yeah, this is the lens I recommend. How to start learning Photoshop. Started experimenting on Photoshop back in junior high school. Of course, I downloaded it illegally. I still have it like that. I don't know what else to say. I'm not a tutorial person. I hate watching tutorials, so I just hopped on it and I just pressed all the buttons and saw what each one does and things like that. Right now that I'm at a decent level of editing, I'm watching more tutorials because I want to do very niche things. It's easy, you will drag the photo inside and you just try, and there are so many apps on the phone that do all similar things as Photoshop, so it won't be difficult for someone in this age that we're living to learn Photoshop from scratch because of the UI. You know which brush shows what. It's pretty easy to just learn how to use a software like that. It's not that hard. The UI is very user-friendly, so yeah. Do you take your pictures yourself? Is there any equipment you would recommend to do that? Just invest in a good tripod, and when I say good, I mean something that won't fall apart or is crooked. The same person asked me about how I edit, but I mainly edit on Photoshop. This means like 95% of my photos is edited on Photoshop, and sometimes I just add a bit of grain, dust, scratches through the Afterlight app, but I use it just for that, nothing else. Sometimes before I upload like my final edited picture, I sometimes change the highlights a bit, I turn it down, because this is what I love to do, by the way. I like to have the highlights really down. This is a nice trick to have a very natural looking skin, because in many photos your skin might look really bright and it doesn't look good on the photo. It looks very sharp, and if you want to go for that soft tone like painting, like, you just turn the contrast a bit down and turn the highlights a bit down and you'll get like perfect soft skin. This is what I do, so this is the only thing I sometimes edit on the Instagram app before I post the photo. How can you stay consistent? This has been killing me. Me too, trust me, because sometimes I take a picture and I'm like, oh my god, I love it, but it doesn't match the aesthetic of my feed. And I'm not here to hide it. It's really frustrating sometimes if you want to have a consistent aesthetic, but the trick for that is just to pick a theme, what you want to photograph. It's very important to have like a color palette. Choose some colors that you like and that are easily accessible to you. Like if you shoot outdoors, you might want to implement the green because of the trees, the blue of the blue sky, and maybe try and use these colors in your other photos that you might take indoors. Maybe wear like a blue shirt, or you know, little things like that. Just work with your clothes, your props, your indoors background, your outdoors background where you usually take pictures, and try to implement the same colors and themes in every photo, and this is how you become consistent. What's your camera lens setup? And what's your dream camera lens setup? If you're traveling and you are trying to shoot photos and videos of a city or landscape photography, or you want to zoom in a bit and just shoot a portrait, it does everything. It's pretty basic, but at the same time it's not specified in something in particular, so it's just here to shoot a little bit of everything. It's not the best at everything, it does the job. But as I said before, the lens I want to buy is a wide angle lens to shoot better videos, and also I want to buy a better telephoto, like a 300mm one, because I want to shoot pictures of animal close-ups. How can I make someone look like he's flying on a broom? I bet you're referring on my Halloween photos, and that's easy. You're gonna sit on a chair. So it's good to use a tripod for that. You will remove the chair, remove yourself, everything, and just take a clear photo of the background, and then you will place that background photo, and on top of that, on Photoshop, the top layer will be the photo with you, with a broom and the chair, and you just go and erase the chair, and it's gonna show the background you have on the back. And I hope I explained it. I really suck at explaining tutorials and things like this. Is why I don't make Photoshop tutorials. I suck at explaining, literally. When did you start having an interest in photography, creating art? So the first medium of art I experimented on was music. And the reason I started learning photography and creating artwork was because I wanted to create my album covers. This sounds so cringy. This is how I started doing photography, but at some point, because my music muse went away for vacation, I just ended up taking photos, and I made my Instagram account back in 2017, and from then I keep experimenting with photography more. I started doing more things because at first I was limited in just creating album covers and artwork for that, and I started doing experimental shots like surreal shots, fashion shots, urban shots, landscape, things like that. I started creating my own aesthetic, like crafted some props, bought some stuff from flea markets around Europe when I was traveling, and this is where I ended up like learning some basic stuff about photography and trying to implement some photography in my artwork. So right now I don't consider myself a musician or a photographer. I consider myself a little bit of a musician and a little bit of a photographer. So a lot of you ask about the cameras and the inspiration and the posing. This is like 65% of the comments. Do you use a filter or editing presets to get your color palette so consistent? So I don't use any filters or presets. Sadly, I don't use Lightroom. I don't know why. I think I'm gonna download it because it really helps you put the same effect on a bunch of photos. In my case, I just edit them separately and it takes a lot of time, but sometimes it's better because different photos have different lighting and shadows. But yeah, I don't use any filters. I hate using filters because it gives you so little freedom to do stuff. Play around with the color balance and color correction in Photoshop. Mainly I put like a little 10% like hue of orange or brown because I really like this effect, but that's it. It's just a color, I just layer it. What editing program app do you use? 95% Photoshop, 4% Afterlight, 1% Instagram. How do you edit your photos to make them dark but cozy at the same time? The thing is, you need to have good props in your photography. Make the photo look dark and cozy before you start editing it, and then once you reach that result, you will be able to just play around with the colors. As I said before, I like to turn down the highlights and the contrast because it creates this cozy vibe and it makes your skin look natural and not overexposed. I hate overexposed stuff, really, it's my bane. Play around with the ISO and the shutter speed. You can just, most of the cameras nowadays will show you on the screen how the photo is gonna look before you press the button. It's very important to have all these elements before you take the photo. How do you get nice lighting when you can't afford fancy lights? I don't have any fancy lights. I hate fake lighting. I know if you're a professional photographer and you have a studio and things like that, you need it, but I'm not a professional photographer and I also hate the fake light. I love the natural light. I don't know, it looks great. So yeah, you can take pretty decent photos without them. Trust me, I've been doing it all these years. I struggle so much taking pictures indoors. If you are in a dark room and you want to take pictures in the dark, the only way to do it is either if you have candles or fairy lights, but that will require to have the ISO very high and that will reduce the quality of the image. Or if you use flash, which I hate it, I don't like it, but if you're into that, that's the other option I have. But you can't take photos in a dark room without a window nearby, or if you don't have a window, then the only way to do it is flash, if you're into this kind of stuff. Oh my god, I've been filming for like an hour now. I really hope I've answered many of your questions. Again, I'm not a professional, I'm just here and trying to experiment and play around with everything. I really hope you enjoyed. I really hope you learned something. If you want more videos like this, leave a like and a comment, maybe asking me something I didn't cover in this video. I will be happy to make more. I love talking about photography, artwork. We can even talk about other things because I create a lot of art types like artwork, music, videography. Just ask me anything you want. Don't forget to subscribe because it really helps me a lot. And yeah, stay safe and I'll see you in the next one.